Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, little technical difficulties there, everybody. Not sure exactly where it cut off, but what I wanted to point out was, yeah, like I was saying, seems like somebody should have been keeping track of this guy. I'm not necessarily saying it was Sam and Twitch because, yeah, maybe, I mean, even though they should have, he's got to register where he lives, he's got to have a parole officer. Like he shouldn't have been able to get an ice cream truck and already be out there killing a kid. Like, granted, Sam and Twitch are trying to do it on the down low, so maybe they couldn't use the NYPD resources or what have you. But yeah, I mean, for him to just be able to go right out and murder another kid is horrific. So then, like we said, with no subtlety whatsoever, just like last time, we went straight from Billy Kincaid to the house where Blake and or Wanda Blake and her daughter live. Now we go straight from seeing Billy Kincaid finger painting right to Wanda picking up her kid from school, um, for no other reason than to see that Spawn is there torturing himself by spying on his ex-wife and daughter that could have been his. And then we get another really strange transition. And this is another reason why this issue, just it's tough for me. Like, we meet a bunch of homeless people, right? And we're sort of told, well, this is what Spawn has come to, right? This is bottom of the barrel for Al Simmons. He's spying on his ex-wife, looking at the daughter that possibly could have been his, and living with some homeless people, as they drink and tell bad jokes and try to stay warm. I mean, and he spends a lot of dialogue like explaining this, and then all of a sudden we go from them hanging around by the fire to this police car barreling through where these homeless people are sleeping on their way to a robbery, complaining about all the homeless sleeping in the alleys and blah blah blah. And they apparently run over one of the homeless guys who was sleeping under some cardboard, and they're all
Yeah.
mad, like, oh, we we told Joey not to sleep under the cardboard, sleep under the boxes. You couldn't tell Joey nothing. And then one of the guys gets all fired up. This ain't got nothing to do with Joey. It's all the cops' fault. Protect and serve. That's a bunch of crap. They protected me from squat. Look, they even let this baby killer out, Billy Kincaid. Like, the whole point of homeless people, guy getting run over by the cops, which is horrible in its own right. The cops bad mouthing the homeless. Also, this homeless guy is going to rail over the fact that Billy Kincaid got freed at a reduced sentence. Like, I'm sorry, just don't get me wrong. I'm sure that homeless people have concerns about the world at large, but to have a homeless guy get this freaked out over Billy Kincaid being really, like, it just doesn't have much of a ring of truth. And there's not being subtle, and then there's going to a ludicrous level, and
Yeah.
that's a little bit what this feels like. Like
Yeah.
like why did he have to have a homeless guy get run over and killed just to get this other guy fired up to complain about Billy Kincaid? And then, of course, now we find out that Al Simmons Spawns has a link to Billy Kincaid from earlier. We did mention the girl that was killed was a senator's daughter. He actually hired Al Simmons at one point because Al Simmons was black bag. And even though Al Simmons is this incredible agent, black bag kind of guy, the NYPD somehow gets to Billy Kincaid first before Al Simmons can kill him and gets arrested. And, again, they only prove that one murder, but they did find an abandoned shack in North Virginia where the remains of multiple bodies were found of kids mutilated and so messed up they never could get a final body count. And the shack was proven to belong to Billy Kincaid, but apparently somebody up on high, in order to punish the senator, made all that evidence disappear.
Yeah.
And even Jason Wynn, Al Simmons' boss, told him to drop it, and he did. Like, again, this is horrible stuff. Like, this is just awful. Like, and if we're supposed to believe that Al Simmons was a good guy, like even back then, you don't let this kind of thing drop. But it seems a little bit in poor taste to me from McFarlane to say, man, this guy killed all these people, and and who are these politicians that are just like, well, yeah, I know all these kids are dead. 20 something kids went missing in the town that Billy Kincaid lived in, but we want to make this guy look bad, so we're going to cover all that up. Like, even certain political parties now that are kind of scum of the earth in my mind. I don't even think they would do this. Like this just seems like a bridge too far to me. I don't know. What do you think, Rocky? You think it has any sort of ring of truth to it?
Uh, uh, well, I mean, I can tell you, I think it has a little bit of ring of truth to it. There's always travesties of justice, obviously, in the real world when it comes to technicalities and stuff. I sort of chuckled, at the beginning where, his Billy Kincaid's lawyer references some obscure 1930 case to get
Yeah.
his client off. It's like every lawyer's dream is to like find that one case that's going to revolutionize and upset the law and like shock people and get a bad guy off. It's like it was ridiculous, but I mean, it's possible. What I find incredible about this is that this issue spends so much time building up how bad Billy Kincaid is, how bad the system is broken, because it's the only reason Billy Kincaid can get away with it, murdering 20 kids uh, uh, horribly, and six experts are needed to identify even one, and they can only convict him for one case, and he gets sentenced to 22 years, and then there's another technicality, and then it gets reduced to 10 years. And the only reason this travesty is happening is because society is falling apart. Everything's broken. The political system, the legal system, everything is broken. And of course, this is the world that Al Simmons has awoke in, and Al Simmons himself had the opportunity to take out this Billy Kincaid back in the day when the senator Paul Jennings asked him to kill this Billy Kincaid, and he never did it. So that's how it's all tied in. And so all this buildup until we get to the end, and the ending feels so abrupt, which I mean you haven't got to yet, but we'll get to it. But for all this buildup, there was a surprisingly abrupt and quick ending
Yeah.
regarding the fate of Billy Kincaid, and that's what was sort of shocking to me. Is that uh, what was really funny here? We talk about the lack of subtlety. There is uh, we talked about how McFarlane is so good at rendering things artistically, but there's a page here at the beginning where it shows Billy Kincaid's eyes. The top of the page shows Billy Kincaid's eyes, and you could tell by the eyes that he's a serial killer, and he's mean and he's cruel. And in the narration, as you said, there's so much exposition. The exposition actually says, Sam actually says, "Look at those eyes." Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Just look at those eyes
yeah, look
and
at those
tell me
eyes.
that man's cured.
Yeah, I mean, McFarlane is literally telling the reader what to do and what to look at. And you don't have to do that when you're an amazing artist. And he's a really good artist there. I mean, Billy Kincaid's eyes pop off the page. We don't need to be told to look at his eyes to know he's a serial killer. You've done an amazing job drawing it. You don't have to spell it out for us in the exposition, but he does. And so it's kind of funny that we said before how that sort of like takes away, in a way, it almost takes away from it. It's redundant when you if you show something so spectacularly with your art, it is kind of redundant to explain it in the narration, and that's something you don't see many more skilled writers nowadays doing. But as you said, it was sort of McFarlane in his earlier days.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we're giving him a bad time about, like DNA wasn't as big of a thing back then. It kind of started in the mid '90s and whatnot. Um, so like the O.J. Simpson trial was the first one that really talked about it a lot and kind of brought it into social consciousness and stuff. So yeah, there's all that. But man, maybe I'm not cynical enough, as cynical as I've gotten about politics, that to think that most of the time you draw the line at kids, right? Like that's where it really gets me. It's like, man, I can't believe these politicians would let him. Maybe if he killed 20 adults, whatever. But when it's 20 kids, but yeah, they let it all go. And so ultimately, we're told that this is what gets Al Simmons off the sidelines, right? Like he's met Malabolgia. He's trying to make the decision at the end of last issue because Malabolgia spelled it out for him. Like, okay, here's your choice, Al. I screwed you. You got a raw deal. Tough luck. You can either use your powers to try to stop evil from happening, which will then bring your second death sooner and give me your soul sooner, or you can choose not to do anything and just let evil run its course, in which case I still win because then there's going to be more evil happening in the world, and that's good for me, and you'll still eventually die. So your only choice is how fast you give up your soul. But because Al Simmons has a personal stake in this, because he was involved, at one point trying to take Billy Kincaid out, when he finds out he's around, again, he decides to get off the sidelines and get involved. Um, and we're told by McFarlane, a new purpose has been given to the helter skelter life of Spawn. This former mercenary has a blemish on his record. He means to clean it up. And when that happens, it's a splash page, and we see, not for the first time, but I think for the first time in such an obvious way, that McFarlane draws Spawn with this magical cape that can become huge at whatever. I think it's back up a few more pages when he's jumping off the roof. If you're watching, yeah, right there. That cape is so gigantic. It would wrap around Spawn about, I don't know, 8 or 9 times. He
Yeah.
certainly couldn't walk anywhere in it. And that's one of the things that's yet so cool about the visual of Spawn. The cape does whatever the hell the cape wants, or whatever the hell McFarlane wants the cape to do. So, but it is super noticeable in that panel
And
where,
it is worth noting that one of McFarlane's favorite comic book covers for speculators is he actually draws an issue of Batman or Detective
Batman, yeah.
Comics with that famous Batman with Batman's cape, and so it is something that I actually think this artistic rendition of Spawn and his cape isn't as good as McFarlane will become. He gets better at drawing Spawn's cape in subsequent issues, but that's a very good observation you made there.
And again, he makes sure to tell us about it too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in this panel, but when we get
Yeah.
to the next page where Sam and Twitch have finally found out where Billy Kincaid is staying. They don't know that he's already kidnapped a girl and murdered her, and they're sitting outside, sort of staking him out the spot. And they do catch a glimpse of Spawn, and what Twitch says is, and he sees a guy with a cape. He's like, they're like, what's going on? A cape. And so that spurs them to get out of the car. They go bursting into the house where Billy Kincaid is. Meanwhile, Spawn has already arrived there, and we're not really sure. We see Spawn, confronting Billy, but we don't actually get to see what happens. And when Sam and Twitch burst in, they're like, "Oh, something's wrong," but they find all the evidence that he's already killed a kid. So they head back to the police headquarters, and they're trying to figure out, like, did this caped freak do something? They want to do it by the book so Billy Kincaid doesn't get away with having killed another person, and so they go into their office, and it's that abrupt ending that Rocky was talking about, and we see Billy Kincaid all chained up with Spawn chains, and he's got popsicle sticks stabbed into him. He's got a ice cream scoop stabbed into him, and instead of talking about ice cream, it says boys scream and girls scream. So I made him scream and scream and scream. So he definitely got his revenge. Um, it doesn't go so far as to say overtly that Billy Kincaid is dead, but
He
very,
doesn't look alive.
yeah, he very well, most likely is. His blood is dripping off of him, but we didn't see any of this. It's just we see Spawn break in and look at him, and then it switches to Sam and Twitch, and then we get this. So, it's not like Billy Kincaid was at all equipped to sort of be a physical match for Al Simmons, especially with his added powers. So, as much as the ending is sort of abrupt, I couldn't, play script doctor and say, well, the ending should have been this or should have been that. Um, but what's interesting is it's like, okay, you gave Billy Kincaid as a motivation and a previous link to his previous life that got Al Simmons off the sidelines in his helter skelter life, but he cleaned it up pretty quick. So now he could just go back to his helter skelter. He's in McFarlane's own words, he's cleaned the blemish off now, right? So he can just go back to sleeping with the homeless guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I I love this. I love this issue, and I remember it. I remember it fondly because you don't see this type of writing much anymore. Nowadays, if a writer wrote this, we'd be subjected to another 6 issues following this. With Spawn on the trail of Billy Kincaid, and Billy Kincaid continuously getting away with it, and more buildup with Billy Kincaid's lawyers, and it would be all this extra drama and everything else. I love this because it's an abrupt ending. All this buildup, such a bad Billy Kincaid, And because he's eliminated and taken out so abruptly and basically off panel, I mean, just sort of hinted at, you don't
Yeah.
really see it. You just like you don't, as a matter of fact, you almost just like you don't see the horror that Billy Kincaid inflicted on the young girl that he kidnaps early in the issue. You see the fingers on the finger painting, but you don't really see the horror that Billy inflicts. You're just told about it. You don't see the horror that Spawn inflicts on Billy Kincaid. You only see the after effects with the chains on that one visceral page at the end where Spawn's chains are wrapped around Billy Kincaid and you know the I scream, you scream. I mean, it's cliche, it's a little tropey, but you know what? At the time, this felt good. I mean, if you like vigilantes, if you're a Punisher fan, if you like bad guys getting their comeuppance, this was a feel good issue, man. I mean, this felt good, and it's a self contained issue, and that's the other great thing about it. You know, if you didn't know anything about Spawn and the first issue you picked up was issue 5, you're buying the previous 4 issues. I guarantee you that. I mean, that's just a fact, and you're definitely buying the next one. And yeah, so yeah, this was my personal favorite of the ones we've reviewed so far, just because it brings back great memories for me.
Yeah, it's actually my least favorite. But like I said, it's not terrible. It's just the quirkiness of it. Like, why did the homeless guy have to get run over? Why did we have the homeless guy go on a rant? Like the over the top being beaten over the head
Yeah.
with the fact that Billy's a bad guy. Like, okay, McFarlane, we get it.
Well, he's
But the
attacking
other,
the cops. He's making the cops look bad. I mean, McFarlane even makes the only good cops are Sam and Twitch. I mean, you got bad
yeah,
cops, you got bad guys, you got the whole system's corrupt. That's what he said about McFarlane. He's just not subtle. Everything, the whole system is a complete shithole.
well, and you know, again, you got to remember the time this was coming out in the '90s when everything was in comics was dark and gritty and really starting to lean into it at that point. You know, we're in the bad girl phase. Um, Punisher's super popular. Uh, you know, obviously Rob Liefeld and his ultra violent stuff, and you know, moving over to creator owned with Image, where all these guys could put in a lot more blood and sort of cut loose, and yeah, they're still finding their way. And again, you wonder if they swung a little too far over to that side of things, making things dark and gritty and bloody because they could, right? Like it's just like you tell somebody they can't do something for so long, and then they have complete freedom. They may take it a little too far. Not that it's in poor taste, but they may not, without realizing it, take it a little too far just because they have the freedom to do so. But I do think it's cool that he references Shadowhawk. He's referenced Youngblood. We saw Savage Dragon make a cameo and um,
Yeah.
on the last couple pages of the previous issue. So yeah, I mean these guys were definitely trying to help each other out in terms of showing that it's a connected universe. And Image United was supposed to be a thing, even though it never ultimately happened, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, next issue I'm looking forward to. I remember issue number 6 being a favorite of mine because we're going to get introduced to another sort of nemesis for Spawn that hangs around for quite a while. So looking forward to that. But
Yeah.
any final thoughts on this issue, Rocky?
No, again, it, I'm back in 1992 enjoying this comic, and it brings back, I mean, Billy Kincaid, classic serial killer. I mean, if there was one dominant phrase that I have never forgotten and I attribute it to this issue, it's I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Whatever the actual nursery rhyme is, I don't know what it is. I just know it from this issue of Spawn. So it's as I say, it's kind of a morbid memory, and don't judge me, but I enjoyed this issue quite immensely.
Well, fair enough. Don't forget, everybody, that if you're checking us out on YouTube, go over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Just do a search for the Comic Source on your favorite podcast app or podcast platform. We're on all of them: Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, all that. If you do listen to us just on audio, you owe it to yourself to go and check out the video stuff as well that comes out on the Comic Boom channel on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, do a search for Comic Space Boom ! Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, give this video a like. All that stuff really helps out Rocky's channel and reach. So again, we'll wish everybody happy holidays. Hope you're enjoying your time counting down to Christmas and getting a chance to check out these episodes and kind of enjoy our Spawnmas here, the Spawn Renaissance that will continue into next year. So once again, we want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.